Thank you, everyone. So, we will start. Very good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the side event of Sustainable Climate Actions for Protecting Landscape and Inspiring New Generations in Forestry or Sapling. My name is Binsar Sihotang. I am part of the International Forestry Students Associations, and I'm also the focal point of the major group Children and Youth for the United Nations Forum on Forest. Sustainable landscape management and resilient forest ecosystem are crucial for our planet future. Youth engagement in climate action is more important than ever. Young people are increasingly driving climate solutions, especially through forestry and environmental sustainability projects. This event brings together youth activists to explore solutions for landscape protections, forest resilience, and scaling youth engagement in forest initiative. We are joined by the distinguished panel of experts, Srada Pandey, founder of GEMS, and Sheikh Imran Iyaswar, and Juchina Dlamini, managing director, Smiling Through Farming and Supplies, and Farah Aju, a young European ambassador for EU Neighbors East. Together, they will share their experiences and discuss how to inspire future generations to take climate actions through dialogue. And we aim to strengthen understanding, expand collaborations, and foster innovative solutions to ensure sustainable forestry and climate resilience. So thank you all panelists to be here. So let's begin the discussion about the sustainable climate actions that you have done. Let's begin with the first questions. So tell us what is your initiative that you have been contributing to the climate resilience. I will invite each panelist to share their experience and also maybe introduce yourself briefly and then answer the questions. Maybe I will start these questions with Srada Pandey, please.
Sure. Thank you, Insar. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So, what my okay, it's called the Grassroots Energy Management Support or GEMS, and we try to transition rural households from their current energy sources to renewables and to other opportunities and other available renewable sources that are available for those rural communities. So that can look very different depending on the accessibility and affordability of each of those communities, and these solutions have to be localized. One of the key things and the key aspect that we look into is cooking, and for cooking, the deforestation and the activities that happens for using firewood as their main source of fuel, wherein they use firewood or cattle dung cakes as their main source of fuel, and how we can sort of transition those households from those practices which are harming not only the environment but their own lives in the long term, to transition them from those to other alternatives that are available for those communities.
Well, thank you so much for the inspiring introductions and also your initiative that have been contributed to the climate resilience, especially maybe reducing the deforestation. Next, Vera, please.
Hello, I'm Vera, and as a very young individual, one of my commitments is to climate education. So I'm from Spain and Peru, and I've started a recycling and waste sorting project in my community, which I've done by researching the local climate policies that have been set up and then trying to find the gaps, especially in the school curricula, regarding climate education, also environmental protection. And this is how I've been conducting workshops with from all the way from elementary to high school students and trying to raise awareness about the opportunities for climate engagement in the community. I come from quite a rural area in Spain, and it is it's a region that has so much green forests, lots of reservoirs. So I think it's very important for youth to know and appreciate the resources that we have available and learn ways to also help protect them. Furthermore, I'm also a young European ambassador for EU Neighbors East. So we basically raise awareness about the collaboration between the European Union and the Eastern Partnership countries, considering Ukraine, Moldova, Belarus, Georgia. And one of the things is these regions specifically has a lot of forest, and we're bringing volunteers from both the EU and the Eastern Partnership countries to participate in the forests and try to find funds and collaboration to preserve these areas, and among all, just raise awareness in the community about programs that the EU has, like the EU for Environment, EU for Energy, so that people know how to participate in these areas as well.
Thank you so much, Vera. Yeah, raising awareness is very important, especially for those who don't really understand about what is the importance of forests to combat climate change and so on. So thank you so much for your work. Move to the still the first questions over to Gina Dlamini, please.
Thank you so much. Good morning to everyone. My name is Gina Dlamini from the Kingdom of Eswatini. I'm more on sustainable agriculture to ensure that we model some sustainable agricultural practices, adopting and modeling agroecology, as well as training young people, creating some high school clubs where we educate and model to young people a sustainable agriculture, and also ensuring that we do a number of tree planting campaign. Yes, we have a number of forest and biodiversity, but we are trying to ensure that we conserve the already existing one, and we try to improve and ensure that we contribute to the target of the country in Africa to ensure that we plant more trees, because our livelihood depends on Mother Nature. So we really need to ensure that we contribute in conserving Mother Nature and taking care of Mother Nature as young people. So building the capacity of young people is very crucial and key. Their capacity and modeling. One of the sustainable agriculture we are doing, we are building an off-grid farm where we are not using the normal energy which is polluting the environment, but ensuring that we use sustainable off-grid production to ensure that people have sustainable food. And also lastly, we ensure that young people are part and parcel in terms of influencing policies. Nothing for the youth without the young people, so they need to be part and parcel in ensuring that they inform, they recommend policies that are going to ensure sustainable forest management and sustainable agriculture in where we are living. So basically that's in a space to ensure we influence, we ensure that young people are well represented for policy, because the policies that we are making today as we're in COP are going to affect young people one way or the other, because they are the now and the future. So they need to be part and parcel. So ensuring that we are present in such spaces, policy recommendation, and keeping our government accountable is so crucial in building the capacity of young people. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your introduction. Yeah, I also think that we have to be part of the policy processes. So because in that way we can understand how the process of making the policy, and we can understand also the situations and the problems that are happening on the ground, so we can actually contribute to the better future. Over to you, Sheikh, please.
Yeah. So thank you so much for having me. And it's really, it's an honor to be part of this panel with all of you amazing people doing such great job. So yeah, my name is Kimran. Small agro-biodiversity study on promoting agro-biodiversity, agroecology, and helping farmers earn more money in southern India. Currently, I work with 5,000 farmers in the Western Ghats side of southern India. Here representing. On? Okay, I hope I'm audible. Yeah, sorry. So, yeah, I run the startup called Prakriti. We work with 5,000 farmers. We help farmers transition to agroecology. We help them earn more money and we give them more incentive to switch to a sustainable food system. Apart from that, I'm here representing EAS World, which is the International Association of Students in Agriculture and Allied Sciences. And most of my work involves mobilizing the community and involving them in conservation efforts. So this is the same activity that I did in the Western Ghats. For those of you who don't know, Western Ghats is a biodiversity hotspot in India, one of the richest agroecological and wildlife zones in the country. So in the Western Ghats, what I focused mainly was on the RETs, the rare, endangered, and threatened tree species. Many of these tree species are on IUCN endangered and extinct list. But over the last few years, working with the MS Swaminathan Research Foundation and on a community participatory conservation effort, we have managed to keep 190 species of these rare, endangered, and threatened species alive. In the Western Ghats region. So we have developed a hub and spoke model where we have a huge forest consisting of all of these endangered species, and we are inspiring other local communities to also adopt these tree varieties seeds. But one of the key challenges in India and across the world with conservation of forest trees has always been availability of saplings, trees, or the plant genetic resource in general. So for this, we are working with all the local communities who are used to these varieties, all the women who have set up nurseries locally. We are organizing them and we are promoting enterprises for these women to produce these saplings, these endangered tree seeds, so that we can give it to all the members of the community who have been asking for such varieties. Because there's very little research done on RET varieties. We have very little knowledge of their effect on soil ecology, on their carbon sequestration abilities, and even on their intrinsic value within itself, even if they don't give us any benefits. So many RET trees like Humboldtia brunonis, Veteria indica, there are multiple ones which are on IUCN red list, which we are conserving out there. And as a result of this hub we have now created almost 10 to 12 satellite forests in the neighboring parts of the district where people are trying to replicate this. Apart from that, we are also promoting thematic forests, for example sacred groves, zodiac forests. So such concepts are allowing communities to come forward and to participate in this conservation effort and make it a self-cyclic process and not just a process which is linked to a project and a fund which might quickly fall off after the fund runs out. So the communities are actively working to conserve the trees which they consider sacred, which is also again linked to conservation. So it's a win-win for the community and for us who are trying to conserve these varieties, and also for the nature, because another major issue in India is invasive tree species. Our forests are being taken over by invasive species like senna, so which is again affecting wildlife as well, because senna cannot be consumed by wild animals. So it just competes with other trees, takes over all over the forests, and it's really bad for soil ecology as well. So in such cases, we need to bring back indigenous tree species, native tree species. We need to eradicate invasive and foreign species out of their native habitats. So these are some things we have been working on for the last 4 years. Also making mini forests in urban areas using these rare endangered threatened species to raise more awareness about them. So yeah, so I'll be looking forward to working more with communities, learning from them, and also I think we'll be discussing more about how we can bridge that gap to make conservation even better.
Thank you very much, Sik. That's very enriching. I have noted many informations from you that you have engaged 5,000. I mean 5,000 farmers, and also mobilizing the community is the key to actually conserve the forest and also the ecosystem. And also you are engaged also with the local communities and how to actually preserve the indigenous tree, and also so the indigenous tree will not be endangered or maybe gone. Well, thank you so much for your sharing. We are moving to the next questions. Our next question will be what since you are working all in your expertise and also in your sector. I think we also need to have collaborations across the sector. So what have you done in order to make this kind of cross collaboration sectors, and what are the challenges in implementing the collaborations among maybe forestry, climate change, and also environmental sector, and how you can actually overcome these challenges? Maybe we'll start with Vera. Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Can you hear me? Perfect. So, one of the things that I consider very important is to have all voices being heard in the table. My family comes from the jungle in Peru. So we have the Amazon River there and such a big amount of forest that what I've been doing is contacting local organizations there to try to get voices from indigenous people who have lots of knowledge about traditional land management and writing a children's book with those voices. I've pre-written a book about SDG number 13, climate action, which now I'm trying to translate to different languages. And the next book that I'm trying to do is this one, specifically focused around youth voices in rural areas or areas with lots of biodiversity, but that are at risk of being deforestation or lots of floodings or droughts. So one of the things I am trying to work on locally in Peru is trying to get the local administrations to go to the schools and bring children to the table, bring children, but also bring those farmers and create open discussions between them so that the policies that are being framed can include all parts of the spectrum.
Yes, thank you so much. I have noted that you are currently writing a children book. This is very important in my opinion because when you were a kid, you can easily remember things, and when someone teaches you or when someone tells you something, you will remember what they have told. So engaging the children and engaging the sharing the awareness and also sharing the experience to the children is very important in order to increase the awareness maybe in the future. Thank you so much, Vera. Over to Gina. Yeah.
Thank you so very much. Collaborations are important and very key because one is a number too small for greatness. So a number of strategic partners in our region, coordinated by DESA, which is the coordinating SADC mechanism in Southern Africa, ensuring that all stakeholders, member states are engaged on issues of sustainable forestry, sustainable agro-food systems, leading and ensuring that projects on agroecology are implemented in the region, all member states being engaged, not leaving young people behind, because DESA strongly recognize YPAD, which is the Young Professional for Agriculture Development, taking the initiative and leading that young people, youth and women are part and parcel of all the initiative to ensure that there is sustainable agricultural production in the region for food security, and then engaging young people from grassroots level to ensure that the grassroots innovation and knowledge is very key. With science innovation there, we recognize its importance, but we need to ensure that we do not leave behind the indigenous grassroots knowledge on forest and sustainable agricultural use, because grassroots knowledge and the richness that is there at grassroots level is so crucial in terms of honest sustainability, either forest or sustainable food production, with science playing a crucial role. So the inclusiveness in terms of science and innovation, grassroots innovation is very crucial, and that is what we embrace on the southern region, and embracing youth, women, which are most of the time the marginalized. So with collaboration with strategic partners being led by our DESA in the region is so crucial, and that is what we embrace and work on in the southern parts of Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, China. Yes, I've noted that you mentioned about the inclusiveness and also like embracing the marginalized people like youth, women, and indigenous people. That is very important in order to make a achievable or like to make a achieve targeted that you have already set. Um, Over to Strada, please.
Thanks, Mansar. I think one key aspect or a key term that comes to mind in such a question is intersectionality of all the fields that are working in the environment and sustainability sector. There will always be some connection or some sort of relation with biodiversity, with forest conservation, with economic empowerment and social empowerment of women. Now, it just becomes a question of how you're balancing those out and how you're making sure that all of these work and build on each other together. Each one has to become a strength of the other. So, the work that I work on predominantly focuses on women empowerment issues because a lot of the cooking and a lot of the fuel that is collected for cooking purposes is done by women. But it also has a very strong forest conservation angle to it. It also has a very strong economic angle to it because the time and energy that is spent by women collecting firewood can go into an economic and social upliftment option, which currently does not exist as a solution for them. So these are a few solutions and a few aspects that I think need to be highlighted and need to be being brought out because there can always be some sort of synergy and there can be a harmonization of all of these different priorities that we can bring together. And it is during such discussions, during such meetings that we realize that there is this connection that is drawn out between all of these different aspects and how we can bridge that connection and how we can link it together.
Well, thank you so much, Strada. Yeah, I've noted that you mentioned about woman empowerment on your work. That is very crucial. I discussed with some women previously, and then she said that empowering women is also empowering the community. That is also an important point. While you empower women, you can also conserve the forest and also increase the economic livelihood maybe for the communities. Thank you so much for your word, and over to Sheikh.
Yeah, I think involving communities is the most crucial aspect of conservation, especially in forestry, because all of us, we are part of a generation that is young. We bring in certain energy for conservation. But at the same time, there is another generation who has actually witnessed the decline of forests, land, and all the policies or different stakeholders who are responsible for this decline, right? So, as part of these communities, which is all the tribal communities, village people from different kinds of villages and districts, so they hold forests very close to their heart. It's a very important resource to people in general and not just a commodity. We treat forest for its value, which is timber or NTFP and all the different things. But there's a huge group of people who treat it for just part of nature, for what it is, right? So as part of that, one of the solutions which came up in India is the People's Biodiversity Registrar, where people can conserve resources in their community. For example, in the current People's Biodiversity Registrar of the district that I work in, there are 2,300 plant genetic resources listed. And these are listed by the people themselves. These may be certain indigenous plants, flowering plants, trees, or fruiting plants, or something they have been conserving in their backyard for centuries, like heirloom varieties or traditional varieties. So having such a community participatory system enables us to not just treat these communities as participants, but as equal stakeholders who are very important in the process. Because forestry is something which is not just led by the Department of Forestry or universities, but is actually led by the people who are living in the forests, which are all the indigenous communities, right? So they hold all the knowledge, they hold all the power to understand how these forests behave and work. And they also hold the key to answering how we can continue conserving them with all the collaborative efforts we bring, in an intergenerational manner. So I believe it is important to have like an incentive reward system and a participatory system so that people can do what they've been wanting to do. All these communities want to conserve forests but lack the right mechanism to participate in this or even consider it conservation. right? So we need to recognize their efforts. We need to give them the right platforms, and we also need to give them the right incentives to keep going, keep continuing this process, and to allow them to protect their homes and lands which they hold sacred.
Thank you, Sheikh. That's very strong statement made by you. Community is equal stakeholders. That's the key, I think. When sometimes community is maybe left behind, not being included in many discussions. When maybe sometimes there is kind of development on these cities, but community only like not really that equal in their development. And also incentive and reward recognize their knowledge and is also important for this. Achieving the sustainable and also collaborations among forestry sectors. Well, thank you for your insight. Clearly, overcoming these challenges require international effort, and also dialogue is also important, where each stakeholder can actually give their voices in order to bring their perspective to the table. Now, let's dive into a crucial topic. How can forestry stakeholders, including governments, women, youth, indigenous people, collaborate to scale up the sustainable climate actions in the forestry sector? China, start with you.
Thank you so very much for that crucial question. How can crucial stakeholders collaborate? One of the crucial important thing is the understanding of sustainable forest, which starts with the sustainable development, which one of the crucial goals according to the United Nations. But sustainable forest management is one of the crucial things that we need to ensure from a grassroots level, and with science and innovation coming into play. And then we look into sustainable agriculture, because with forest there we need to sustain it, but we still need to have food. And then one of the major challenges in terms of having sustainable forest, it is to ensure that you produce sustainable food. That is where the issues of sustainable agroecology, regenerative agriculture come into play. You need to sustain the world with food. The growing population in everywhere in the world, your India or Africa, the population is growing. So, but the most important thing is your science and innovation coming into play to ensure that we bring some innovation, not neglecting the grassroots innovation and knowledge to ensure that we sustainably manage our forest. But all those innovations are within an ecosystem with benefits for everyone. For example, the direct benefits it's the direct use benefits for forest foods and forest medicine that we get as human beings. We get food from the forest, your fruits, indigenous fruits and all those things, as well as medicine come from those forests. So we really need to sustainably manage it. And then with that, we have your indirect use like benefits, your tourism, your agrotourism. Your forest acts as a tourism and even a home for a number of natural or wildlife. The forest needs to ensure that it's a home for that one. So the sustainability is so crucial. With policies at play, we need to have strategic policies and implement, because without policies at play at national level and regional level, everything is doomed. So the sustainability for our forest and our foods is so crucial to maintain one world and living in harmony with Mother Nature.
Thank you, China. Yeah, grassroots innovation is also important, and also strategic policy to implement all of the system, and also sustainable food and also sustainable forest is also important. Sik, do you want to answer the next questions? Yeah.
Yeah. I think the key challenge here is we need to bridge the gap between technology and indigenous knowledge, right? Because there have been multiple advancements made in forest conservation from a technology lens, like GIS, remote sensing. There's many different things, But at the same time, it is the communities who hold all the knowledge about conservation, about the varieties of trees, about how they ecologically fit into a forest. Because a forest is not just planting 100,000 different trees. That does not count as a forest, it's a plantation, right? So forest needs ecology, it needs integration with soil and what's happening underneath soil with the microflora and microfauna, all the birds, animals. So that's what's built a forest, right? And forest also benefits communities economically, but unfortunately we do not recognize many of those economic benefits, especially as you mentioned, the non-timber forest produce, on which many indigenous communities rely. Stopped. Okay, it's back. My bad. Yeah, and sometimes when we classify forests under conservation, we shut them down completely, which also includes indigenous communities enter the forest to collect the non-timber forest produce, which this is something I've observed personally in some forests in Western Ghats. These are displaced to other locations and made to live outside forests, which is not where they're used to living, and hence they end up living in settlements, and they end up encountering problems such as related to wash, related to education, related to climate change, anxiety, so many different things, and they have to change their livelihoods to ensure survival. So it is important that we keep the communities connected to the forest, at least the ones who want to be involved. And we also have to make sure that the technology conversations that we are having on a very broad level need to be implemented and need to be used by these communities, if not directly, at least as a knowledge base. So we need to ensure that this gap of indigenous knowledge and technology is bridged, or at least synergized, so that forest conservation is a more transparent process. And also, another just a personal observation, like especially a young person like me, many of us don't know what a forest even looks like, or we have not seen what a forest is. So we need to bridge that awareness gap as well and show kids, especially young children, that okay, this is what a forest is, this is how it looks, and this is how beneficial it is. The air, the clean air you get is because of this. So we need to create that kind of awareness from a young age as well.
Thank you, Sik. Yeah, bridging the indigenous knowledge and also the technology is important in order to have better understanding and also better implementations at the grassroots level. Over to you, Vera, for these questions.
So one of the key aspects I would say, and I've realized coming from Peru, is that sometimes policymakers and stakeholders try to make policies related to forests, but they are not actually going to those communities. They are doing those policies, they're crafting them from the outside without really knowing what the needs of the communities are. They are thinking from an outside perspective without really consulting the people there, trying to get to know what their daily life looks like, what their necessities are. We also have to consider that education, especially in rural areas, areas surrounded by forests, is quite limited, especially in the global south. So really making the effort to go to these places and understanding how the food chain works, how the daily life of the people look like, what their needs are on a regular basis, and what they aspire to do with their forest is very important for then knowing how to move forward with those policies that are being created, especially, for example, in countries like Peru, which is extremely centralized. And in all of our regions, besides the capital Lima, we don't really have these powerful stakeholders going and understanding those needs. Also, one thing I would like to add, as you were saying, talking about technology, right now I'm working on a project that has to do with sustainable tourism, and I want to bring technology and innovation to this field. I'm trying to create an app that brings awareness both to the local community, but also outsiders that go to visit. The Amazon jungle is a very famous place, and many tourists go from all around the world, creating a big carbon footprint. So what I'm trying to do is create an app in which tourists come and make sustainable practices, and in return for that they can get either discounts or maybe free offers from local businesses in order to promote energy efficient practices, business practices, and at the same time trying to preserve these forests and areas that they are going to. And this is also an aims to reducing the carbon footprint that tourism creates, and which is a problem, especially coming from the global south, where we have increasingly more and more tourists, but we cannot even handle the situation in our country. And with people coming from the outside, it's very important that they are informed about what the needs of the community are. So with these app, try to combine both promoting the sustainable practices that are being implemented in the communities, and rewarding those tourists with especially free discounts and that they can utilize, and also trying to bring awareness to the global world and those local communities about what resources are in the country.
Thank you, Vera. Yeah, the needs of the community is important. I believe that the government or stakeholders should really put an effort to actually engage the community, to actually listen what they're saying, and to actually listen what they really want in order to develop their community, and also in order to sustain the ecosystem or the forest in surrounding of their community. That's very good of what we're doing. Over to Strada about this question.
Thanks, Ansar. I think the question was essentially how each of the stakeholders can contribute, and it essentially comes down to which stakeholder we're talking about. So, if we're talking about the government, then in rural communities, in communities which actually live in harmony with the nature, understanding and helping them through workshops, through trainings, to understand how the practices that they're adopting can reach scale, can actually make an impact on these trees, can actually make an impact for the environment, is something that they can work towards. Making sure that these technological innovations that are happening in closed rooms, in huge laboratories, in scientific research centers, they can reach the rural communities. That work can be done by the government in partnership with local organizations like the non-profits that exist in those communities, or the local self-governments that exist in most of these rural communities. The next question that comes across is how exactly do we reach the community members, and how do we have that communication with the community members to help them understand, or to understand their point of view. And I think in that aspect, the youth community and women can play a crucial role, because the realities of day to day are something that they live in and they have experienced, so they can help bridge that gap between the conversations that are happening in closed room meetings, in locations like the COP, and actual ground realities that they have to live in every day. So helping them understand and helping them contribute what their realities are, and how those realities can translate into actionable items through policies, laws and standards in the country and beyond, is something that we have to learn from those communities and have a conversation with those communities to come to a consensus. Because without consensus building about what is going to happen in those communities, and having a conversation here is not going to yield us anything until and unless that consensus results in a win-win situation for both of them, both the environment and the community members. That is not going to lead to a result which we want, or which we can even have sustainably in the long term. So I think these are a few aspects that I want to highlight.
Thank you so much, Strada. So we are going to the closing session, but before close, in case, are there any questions from the audience? Okay. No.
Hello.
If there is no questions from the floor, I would like to ask you the final questions. What what will be your message to the younger generations in advancing sustainable climate actions, especially in the forestry sector? So feel free. Who wants to go first? Okay, Strada, please.
I can go first.
Yeah.
I think the three things that come to my mind for the communities to remember and for each one of us to remember is number one, community, number two, consensus, and number three, conservation. When all of these three go together, we can actually make this world a better place.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, as a concluding to everyone, as we're in COP 29, I think as far as climate change is concerned, there are 29 COPs. I think if you look and read, to us who are a younger generation, we see a repetition on one and the same thing. And they say there are 67,000 participants physically here at COP. Look at the emissions that we have created trying to fly to come to COP. Is it worth it to come to COP, or we can think of other sustainable means? Because the truth of the matter, Mother Nature is crying because of human activities, a lot of human-induced activities. Your flight are all over, urbanizations, we're destroying our forest, and Mother Nature is complaining, deforestation. We're doing the same thing, the same things, the same time, but the results are different. So we really need to reevaluate and look at how can we sustainably ensure that we conserve Mother Nature, we live in harmony, because we are going to suffer the consequences of all the human-induced activities. So let's conserve and stop doing the same things, expecting different results. And inclusiveness, grassroots innovation and knowledge is so crucial for sustainable development and sustainable forests. Thank you.
I'm gonna try to keep it short, and I would say one of the main things is being informed and making an effort to share your knowledge with others. Specifically when it comes to education, rural areas, especially considering now the global south, don't really have access to quality education. We can see, and the intersection of many of the SDGs now interplaying, and how at the end of the day they foster systems of oppression, not letting people know what their rights are. And it's our mission to try to inform our community, to try to get informed and spread the message. Either if it's through your volunteering, through your activism, through the children's book that I'm writing. It's very important to understand the needs of local communities and act there, not outside, because these are the people that take care of the land. They know how traditional methods work, and they are the ones knowing their needs and what they need in order to keep preserving them. So trying to actively making the effort to bring all voices to the table and framing policies that consider everyone.
Thank you, Vera.
Yeah, I think my message would be specifically for all the young people. It's sometimes, you don't always have to look forward. Looking back can also give you some solutions to climate action. When I say this, I'm referring to all the indigenous traditional knowledge, all the work communities have been doing in the past. And that's when you'll realize how the role of stakeholders has changed a lot in forestry or in biodiversity conservation. So I think we can keep the solutions very simple, not complicated, and actually talk to the communities to understand what are the problems and how we can work on it. So yeah, I think we should also look back sometimes.
Well, thank you very much for all of your kind words. So I have noted many things, actually. I have noted many things based on your final remarks. Community consensus and collaborations by Strada 2024. And also, China mentioned that stop doing the same thing. We need innovations, and we need to make other relevant things that are innovative, that are contributive to the communities and also to the protections or preservations of our forests. And Vera mentioned that we have to make an effort. That's simple, but it's also difficult to be done because not many people can actually do that things because they will have many like reasons. Oh, this is difficult to be done. It takes a lot of resources. It takes a lot of time, and then they just like take the shortcut. They don't want to make an effort for that. That's very good remark for you. And then um, Sheikh mentioned that we have to look back. Sometimes we always like look in front of us, but we don't really know what's happening behind that. So we really have to understand the history and also looking back, how we can actually learn from the past experience and how we can actually mitigate the past maybe issues and challenges, and how we can actually innovate and also learn from the previous mistakes. Well, thank you very much for all of you who are coming here, and it's very nice to see all of you who have been working on the forestry initiative and also landscape initiative. I hope this message can be spread to all of the young generations out there in order to do something to protect the forest and also sustain the forest ecosystem in the world. Well, thank you so much for